The moment my lips met Talia's in a bold kiss right on the graduation stage at NYU in New York, the entire auditorium fell into a stunned silence. My family, dressed in their best suits and dresses in the front row, stood up as one, their faces twisted in disbelief and shame, and they turned their backs on me, walking out without a single glance back. But as the echoes of their footsteps faded, one person in the crowd rose slowly and started clapping, the sound cutting through the tension like a beacon of unexpected support. I stood there frozen, Talia's hand still warm in mine, the diploma folder clutched so tightly my knuckles turned white. The dean had just called my name, Catherine Nguyen, summa cum laude, and instead of the polite smile and handshake I had rehearsed for months, I had turned to Talia and pulled her close. 3 years of hiding, 3 years of stolen glances and whispered promises, exploded into one public second that I could never take back. Whispers rippled through the rows of black gowns. Cameras flashed. My heart hammered so loud I barely heard the scattered applause that followed the single clapper. Talia's green eyes met mine, wide with equal parts terror and pride. She was 23, same as me, with freckles across her nose and hair the color of autumn leaves. We had met in freshman orientation when she dropped her coffee on my notebook and laughed until we both cried. That laugh had saved me from the pressure of being the perfect eldest daughter in a Vietnamese-American household, where honor was currency and silence was survival. My father, Mr. Nguyen, owned 3 restaurants in Queens and expected me to marry a respectable man, produce grandchildren, and keep the family name spotless. My mother cooked every meal with the quiet fear that one wrong move could unravel the American dream they had built from nothing. My younger brother Min was supposed to follow in my footsteps. None of them knew about Talia. Until now. The ceremony dragged on in a blur. I kept scanning the exits hoping my family would return, but the seats stayed empty. When the caps finally flew into the air, Talia squeezed my hand again. "We did it, Kat," she whispered. "Whatever happens next, we face it together." Her voice trembled but her grip was steady. I nodded, though my stomach twisted. I had chosen this moment deliberately, right here where my achievements were supposed to make my parents proud. Instead, I had weaponized their pride against them. We walked off the stage hand in hand, the crowd parting like water around a stone. A few classmates offered awkward smiles or quick thumbs up, but most avoided eye contact. Outside on the plaza, the June sun beat down on the stone steps. My phone buzzed nonstop, messages from cousins and aunts flooding in, but none from the people whose opinion mattered most. Talia and I found a quiet bench under a blooming dogwood tree. She rested her head on my shoulder, and for a minute the world felt possible again. Then my phone rang. It was my mother. I answered with shaking fingers. "Catherine, how could you?" Her voice cracked like thin ice. "Your father is driving home without speaking. The relatives are calling. What have you done to us?" I tried to explain, but the words lodged in my throat. Talia took the phone gently. "Mrs. Nguyen, this isn't about hurting you. Catherine loves you. She just needs to be honest." The line went dead. That single clap still echoed in my ears. I later learned it came from my cousin Lynn, the only one brave enough to stand when everyone else sat in judgment. But in that moment, all I felt was the weight of the choice I had just made irreversible. The war between who I was and who they needed me to be had begun. And there would be no winners, only survivors. Back at the apartment I shared with 2 roommates, Talia and I packed an overnight bag. I didn't know if I would ever sleep under my parents' roof again. The city lights of New York blinked outside the window like distant stars, indifferent to the earthquake I had triggered. Talia brushed a strand of hair from my face. "Whatever they say tomorrow, remember this. You are enough." I wanted to believe her. But deep down, I already wondered how much of my life I would have to burn to keep the truth alive. The next morning arrived too soon. My father's text was short and final. "Come home now. We need to talk." Talia offered to drive me, but I refused. This was my mess. I kissed her goodbye at the subway entrance, tasting salt on her lips. As the train rattled toward Queens, I rehearsed every possible apology and every possible defense. None of them felt right. The family honor I had been raised to protect was already cracking, and I was the one holding the hammer. By the time I reached the familiar brick house with the red door, my hands were ice. I knocked once, then stepped inside to face the storm I had unleashed. My mother sat at the kitchen table, eyes red-rimmed. My father stood by the window, back rigid. Min hovered in the doorway, looking younger than his 20 years. No one spoke for a full minute. Then my father turned, voice low and dangerous. "Explain yourself, Catherine." I opened my mouth, but the words that came out were not the careful speech I had planned. They were the truth, raw and unfiltered, and once they left me there was no going back. The truth poured out in a rush. Her name is Talia. She's the reason I smiled every day through law school. She's the one who held me when I cried after you told me I had to be perfect. I love her, Dad. Not like a friend. Like my future. My father's face darkened to the color of storm clouds. He slammed his palm on the counter, rattling the teacups my mother had set out in a desperate attempt at normalcy. Love? This is not love. This is selfishness. You spit on everything we sacrifice for you, the nights we worked double shifts, the loans we took so you could wear that gown yesterday. My mother reached for my hand, but I pulled away, afraid her touch would break me. People are already talking, Catherine. Your aunt called 3 times. The church group knows. How do we show our faces at the Lunar New Year dinner? Her voice cracked and I hated myself for causing it. Min shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between us. He had been the one clapping. I learned later he had driven separately and stayed until the end, but right now he stayed silent, torn between blood and belief. I tried to make them see. I didn't plan to hurt you. But hiding was killing me. Every time you asked about boyfriends, every time you planned my wedding in your head, I felt myself disappear. Talia isn't a phase. She's my person. My father laughed, a bitter sound. Person? She is a woman. Our family does not do this. You will apologize publicly. You will say it was a joke, a college stunt. Then you will come home and we will fix this. The word fix landed like a slap.
Istud taller.
I can't fix who I am. The argument spiraled for hours. Accusations flew. My mother wept that I was destroying her health. My father threatened to cut me off financially, to tell the partners at the law firm where I had just accepted an associate position that their new hire came with family drama. Min finally spoke, voice small. Maybe we can just not talk about it for now. But even he knew that was impossible. The kiss was already viral on campus social media. Someone had recorded it. By evening, exhaustion settled over the house like fog. My father gave me an ultimatum. End things with Talia quietly or lose the family name. I left before dawn, driving back to the city with tears blurring the highway lines. Talia waited up, wrapped in my old NYU sweatshirt. She didn't ask questions, just held me while I shook. They'll come around, she whispered, but her eyes said she wasn't sure. The next weeks blurred into a battlefield of phone calls and avoidance. My mother texted daily, alternating between guilt and anger. Your cousin Lynn keeps asking about you. She said. She clapped. Why would she do that? I didn't have an answer. Lynn had always been the wild one, studying art in Brooklyn while the rest of us chased stability. Maybe she understood more than I gave her credit for. At the law firm, whispers followed me. A senior partner pulled me aside. We value diversity, Catherine, but optics matter. Keep personal matters private. The message was clear. My career, the one I had sacrificed sleep and sanity for, now hung by a thread woven from family reputation. Talia noticed the toll. She suggested we take a weekend away, just the 2 of us, to remember why we fought. We drove upstate to a small cabin. No Wi-Fi, no expectations. Under the stars, she traced patterns on my arm. Whatever happens, I'm not going anywhere. For 48 hours the world felt simple again. But Monday brought reality crashing back. My father called the firm directly. I found out when HR requested a meeting. We received concerning information about your conduct at graduation, the director said, not meeting my eyes. No formal write-up yet, but the warning was unmistakable. I drove home that night shaking with rage and fear. Talia met me at the door with takeout and open arms. We'll fight this together, she said. But I saw the cracks forming in her confidence too. She had her own family in Connecticut, progressive but distant, and they didn't understand why I couldn't just be myself without consequences. The betrayal started small. An old high school friend posted a vague status about some people forgetting where they came from. My aunt sent a group text excluding me from the next family gathering. Min called once, voice hushed. Dad's not sleeping. Mom keeps asking if it's her fault for raising you too American. Each word chipped away at the armor I had built. I began to question everything. Was one kiss worth this avalanche? Yet every time doubt crept in, Talia was there with quiet strength. She never pushed, never demanded I choose. She simply existed beside me, steady as the Hudson River. One night, after a particularly brutal argument with my mother over the phone, I collapsed on the couch. Talia knelt in front of me. You don't have to be strong every second. Let me carry some of it. In that moment, I realized the real choice wasn't between her and my family. It was between hiding forever and living honestly no matter the cost. The price was already mounting, and I had only begun to pay. Summer heat wrapped New York in a sticky embrace while my life unraveled in slow motion. The law firm assigned me to document review instead of the high-profile case I had been promised. Colleagues who once invited me to happy hours now made excuses. I told myself it was temporary, that professionalism would win out. But deep down I knew my father's phone call had planted seeds of doubt that grew faster than any defense I could mount. Talia suggested we make our relationship official on social media. A quiet post with a photo from the cabin. No big announcement, she said. Just us being us. I hesitated for 3 days. Posting felt like lighting another match in a room full of gasoline. When I finally hit share, the likes came from strangers and college friends. The silence from my family spoke louder than any comment. Then the first betrayal arrived in the form of my cousin Daniel, the golden boy who worked in finance. He messaged me privately. Uncle is telling everyone you had a breakdown. Maybe delete the post before it affects the business. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Daniel had always been the one to smooth things over. Now he was choosing sides. Lynn the clapper reached out next. We met at a cafe in Brooklyn. Her paint-splattered jeans a stark contrast to my business casual. I clapped because someone had to, she said, stirring her matcha. Auntie called me crying, said you're breaking Mom's heart. But Kat, you've been breaking your own heart for years. Her words hit harder than any lecture from my father. Lynn offered her couch if I needed space. I thanked her but declined. Running to family, even the supportive branch, felt like admitting defeat. The confrontation I dreaded came on a humid Thursday evening. My mother showed up at my apartment unannounced, carrying a container of pho like a peace offering. Talia was at work, thank God. Mom sat on the edge of the couch, hands folded. Your father won't say it, but he's scared. The restaurants are struggling with reviews online. People are connecting your name to this. She gestured vaguely at the space between us. Come home for dinner Sunday. No, Talia. Just family. We can talk. The plea in her eyes nearly broke me. I agreed, not because I believed it would fix anything, but because refusing would shatter her completely. Sunday arrived with dread. The house smelled of lemongrass and tension. My father carved the roast duck with mechanical precision. Min kept his eyes on his plate. Halfway through the meal, my father set down his chopsticks. The partners at your firm called me. They want reassurance that this phase is over. I felt the room tilt. You called them again? My voice rose despite my promise to stay calm. This isn't a phase, Dad. This is my life. He stood so fast the chair scraped. Your life is destroying ours. Choose. The word hung in the air like smoke. My mother started crying softly. Min finally spoke. Maybe we can find a counselor, someone who understands. But his suggestion only fueled my father's anger. Counselor? To what? Convince her to sin. I left before dessert, the pho I had barely touched churning in my stomach. Outside I called Talia, voice breaking. She picked me up, drove me to the river, and we sat on the hood of her car watching the lights reflect on the water. I feel like I'm being torn in half, I admitted. She didn't offer solutions, just listened. That night, back at our place, she held me until I fell asleep. But sleep brought nightmares of empty chairs at future weddings and my mother's disappointed face. The next betrayal came from an unexpected source. My roommate Sarah, whom I had trusted with pieces of the story, forwarded a group chat where colleagues discussed Catherine's situation. The messages were clinical, concerned about client perception. Sarah claimed she was trying to defend me, but the damage was done. I moved out the following weekend, crashing with Talia in her tiny studio. The space felt like freedom and failure at once. Lynn texted daily check-ins, small acts of solidarity that kept me afloat. She even offered to talk to my parents, but I refused. This was my war. Yet with each passing day, the sacrifices mounted. My savings dwindled. The firm placed me on a performance review. Talia picked up extra shifts at the bookstore to cover rent. We cooked simple meals and laughed at old movies, but the laughter carried an edge. One night she asked quietly, "Do you ever regret the kiss?" I answered without hesitation, "Never. But I regret what it's costing everyone." She nodded and we didn't speak of it again. The pressure built like a storm front. My mother left voicemails begging me to attend the family reunion. My father stopped calling altogether. Min sent memes at odd hours, his way of saying he was still there. I clung to those crumbs while the core of my world cracked wider. The choice loomed larger every day. Keep fighting for my truth or fold to save the people who raised me. I didn't know how much longer I could stand in the middle without breaking. Autumn leaves painted the city in fiery tones, but inside the law firm the atmosphere remained ice cold. My performance review came back needs improvement, despite flawless billable hours. The senior partner cited distracted focus. I knew what it really meant. My father's influence in the tight-knit Vietnamese business community had reached further than I imagined. Clients whispered. Referrals dried up. I started updating my resume in secret, shame burning my cheeks. Talia noticed the late nights and the way I flinched at every notification. She suggested therapy, a neutral space to unpack the guilt. The counselor, a kind woman with wire-rimmed glasses, asked the question I dreaded. What would happen if you chose yourself completely? I left the session in tears. Choosing myself meant losing the only family I had ever known. Choosing them meant losing the only love that felt real. The firm Christmas party became the next battleground. I attended alone, Talia understanding the optics. My father had somehow secured an invitation through a client connection. He cornered me by the coat check. People are watching, Catherine. Smile. Pretend. His cologne, the same one from my childhood, made my stomach turn. I smiled through gritted teeth, but inside I was screaming. Later that night, a partner pulled me aside. Your family is important to our network. Don't make us choose sides. The message was crystal clear. My career, the dream I had chased since high school, was now collateral damage in a war I never wanted. I told Talia everything over cheap wine on our tiny balcony. She listened, then said the words I feared. Maybe I should step back for a while. Give you space to fix things with them. Panic clawed at my chest. No. That's exactly what they want. We argued for the first time in months, voices low but sharp. She slept on the couch. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, wondering if love could survive when everything else was burning. Lynn became my lifeline. She dragged me to art openings and rooftop parties where no one knew my last name. One night at a gallery in Bushwick, she introduced me to a queer attorney who ran her own practice. Small firm, big heart, Lynn said with a wink. The woman handed me her card. We don't care who you kiss. We care if you can win cases. For the first time in months, possibility flickered. But accepting would mean walking away from the prestige track my parents had sacrificed for. Another sacrifice on the altar of truth. My mother called on Thanksgiving. Just come for dessert. No questions asked. I went, Talia waiting in the car outside like a getaway driver. The house smelled of turkey and old arguments. Min hugged me too tight. My father nodded once, jaw tight. Dessert passed in strained small talk until my aunt asked, "So, any nice boys?" The room froze. I set down my fork. "No boys, Auntie. Only one woman." My mother gasped. My father stood. Enough. I left before the pie was served, Talia's hand steady on my back as we drove away. The holidays blurred into a haze of isolation. Work felt like walking through quicksand. Talia and I clung to each other, but cracks widened. She started sleeping later, scrolling through job listings in Connecticut. Closer to my parents, she explained. They miss me. I heard the unspoken. They don't have conditions. Guilt gnawed deeper. Was I selfish for keeping her in this storm? Then came the email that changed everything. The firm offered me a voluntary leave of absence with pay, citing personal matters. I knew it was a polite shove toward the door. That night I sat on the fire escape, city sounds swirling below, and made a decision. I would not beg. I would not hide. But the cost was climbing higher than I had ever imagined. My savings were nearly gone. My family was a distant shore I could no longer reach. Talia was the only anchor left, and even she was drifting. Winter stripped the city bare, mirroring the emptiness I felt inside. I accepted the leave from the firm and started freelancing small cases from Lynn's apartment while Talia worked double shifts. The independence tasted bitter. Every invoice I sent reminded me of the future I had traded for honesty. My mother texted photos of family dinners I was no longer invited to. Min sent voice notes apologizing for not speaking up sooner. Each message carved another piece from my heart. Talia and I reached a breaking point on a snowy Tuesday. She came home late, snow in her hair, and set down her bag with unusual force. I love you, Kat, but I can't watch you disappear anymore. Your family is killing you slowly, and you're letting them. Her words landed like stones. I defended them out of habit. They're scared. This isn't their world. She shook her head. And what about my world? What about us building something real instead of always reacting to their pain? The argument lasted until sunrise. She slept at a friend's. I cried until my eyes swelled shut. Lynn found me the next morning with coffee and tough love. You have to choose, Kat. Not between them and her. Between who you were raised to be and who you actually are. The words echoed the counselor's question. That afternoon I walked the Brooklyn Bridge alone, wind whipping my coat. Below, the river flowed indifferent. I thought about every sacrifice. The career I had lost, the holidays I had missed, the mother whose health was declining from stress. Then I thought about Talia, steady and bright, the only person who saw all of me and stayed. I called my father that night. I need you to hear me. I am lesbian. I am in love with Talia. I will not apologize for that anymore. The line was quiet for so long I thought he had hung up. Then he spoke, voice flat. Then you are no longer my daughter. The words severed something deep inside. I dropped the phone and screamed into a pillow until my throat burned. Talia came back the next day. We didn't speak of the fight. Instead, we made plans. She had been offered a management position at a bookstore in Brooklyn. I had interviews lined up at 3 small firms that valued authenticity over optics. We found a 1-bedroom in Park Slope with a tiny balcony. Signing the lease felt like jumping off a cliff with no parachute. But for the first time, the fall felt like flying. My mother called once more. Your father won't say it, but he watches your social media. He saw the picture of you and Talia at the bridge. Her voice wavered. Be happy, Catherine. Just be careful. It wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't rejection either. A fragile thread remained. Min texted later. Proud of you, sis. Lynn says hi. Small mercies in a landscape of loss. The move happened on a crisp March morning. Boxes stacked in the new living room. Sunlight slanting through clean windows. Talia hung a painting Lynn had given us. Abstract strokes of blue and gold. We stood on the balcony, city stretching below. We made it, she whispered. I kissed her, soft and sure. The kiss at graduation had started the war. This one marked the beginning of peace I had chosen for myself. Spring arrived with tentative green buds and the first real test of our new life. I landed a position at a boutique firm specializing in civil rights. The pay was lower, the hours longer, but every case felt like purpose. Talia thrived at the bookstore, organizing author events and building a community of readers who became friends. We hosted Sunday brunches where Lynn brought chaotic energy, and Min occasionally showed up, sneaking away from family expectations. The apartment filled with laughter again. Yet the past refused to stay buried. My father's restaurants received anonymous negative reviews mentioning family values. My mother developed high blood pressure and missed work at the nail salon she co-owned. Each doctor's report stung like fresh salt. I offered to pay for her medication anonymously through Min. He accepted without comment. The thread between us grew thinner but never snapped completely. The irreversible moment came at Pride. Talia and I marched with Lynn's art collective, rainbow flags waving. I posted a photo of us kissing under the arch in Washington Square Park. The caption read simply, "Finally free." The post spread faster than the graduation kiss. My phone exploded with messages, some supportive, many condemning. My father called at midnight. You have chosen your path. Do not contact us again. The finality in his voice closed a door I had left cracked open. I blocked the number, tears falling silently. Talia held me through the night. You are not alone, she repeated like a mantra. Weeks later, a letter arrived from my mother. Inside was a single photo of me at age 8, smiling gap-toothed at the camera, and a note. I love you even when I don't understand. Take care of each other. No return address. I pinned the photo above our bed. Some bridges burn. Others smolder quietly, waiting for rain. My career stabilized. The firm promoted me after winning a landmark housing discrimination case. Talia proposed on the same graduation stage where everything began, this time empty and echoing with possibility. I said yes through happy tears. Min walked me down the aisle at our small courthouse wedding. Lynn officiated with paint-stained hands and a fierce grin. My mother watched via video call, face hidden behind a tissue. My father did not appear. The absence hurt, but the presence of chosen family filled the space. Years later, I still carry the scars. The family business eventually recovered, but the distance remains. I visit my mother twice a year in secret. Min brings photos of new nieces and nephews I may never meet. Talia and I built a life of quiet victories. A home, a dog, careers we love. The price was steep, relationships fractured, trust shattered, years of guilt. But every morning I wake beside the woman who gave me courage to be whole. Was it worth it? True or false? Living your truth always demands a price higher than the love it costs your family.